All right, it was most keenly contested in the United States and it was most keenly watched around the world. That's because for whatever time, the United States is still the most powerful nation in the world, and Donald Trump has come up trumps against Kamala Harris and the Democrat establishment, defeating Kamala Harris both in the popular vote and the Electoral College. In fact, this is the first time perhaps in recent history that the Republicans have everything from the Senate to the Congress to the National Popular Vote to the Electoral College. And Shravan joins me to help us understand what this really means. Shravan, looking at the campaign which Trump really ran, can you share some aspects of which perhaps could impinge on India as well?
Well, I'll take you through all the details coming in right now. Ladies and gentlemen, after Grover Cleveland, you have Donald Trump, the only second president to come back after a loss. Now, what really resonated during his campaign, and what is it that he's indicating from his first victory speech? Let's quickly take you through. First is with regards to taxation. Herein, you've seen how the Republicans have targeted to the Democrats by saying that they're going to increase the taxation. This is the one big promise that has found resonance among the voters. Intends to reduce the corporate tax. That's a slash that you're really looking at. Tariffs is another hotly contested issue. Intends to impose over 10% tariff on US imports. That's because he largely advocates the fact that you've had other countries bringing in products at a much lower rate, so that he wants to arrest. Let's take a look at the anti-China measures likely to implement policies to reduce reliance on China. Once again, an indication that he just made in the last speech. Let's take you through the other. What next is it looking like? Pledge to execute largest deportation in the US history. Now, this is the biggest takeaway because the first statement that he made after in the victory speech was about sealing the borders and talking about legal migration. That's the reason why. That's the big statement he makes. Now, this is the second key point coming in from the victory speech about stopping the wars. How does he really do that? You could limit US financial support for Ukraine. And that's where the US Congress comes into the picture. Remember the kind of money that has been pumped in over the last few years to fuel this. Now, this is, again, not the most popular opinion that has been made by Donald Trump. This is with regards to climate change, where he says he aims to eliminate all kind of subsidies as far as renewable energy and EVs are concerned. Now, that's, again, another hotly contested issue. And the final big takeaway is about the Federal Reserve, where he says that he's going to exert control over the Federal Reserve. It's the protectionist view of Donald Trump coming out from this. So, Abhishek, with regards to what really happens as far as India-US relations are concerned, the bonhomie that has been referred to by the Prime Minister, and particularly taking forward as far as the multiple deals are concerned?
Well, obviously, and we have seen how, Shravan, during the Biden-Harris administration, there were a lot of creases insofar as India-US relationship is concerned from many of the deals which got stuck. Despite all the public bonhomie and a facade of doing good things, great stuff together, the fact is that the relationship was not sort of evenly poised, and it is hoped, as it comes out of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's congratulatory message, that we would be going back to the times where there was actual constructive work happening between the two sides.
Well, in fact, let's also now give the big picture in terms of numbers and what has really worked in favor of Donald Trump. Now, that's the numbers that we're going to really talk about, how the Electoral College was essentially divided and whether at all the Republicans have been able to retain their stronghold. If you really look at the map right now, it's completely red, barring a few states, of course. These are the swing states that has really worked for Donald Trump, starting with Pennsylvania, 19, North Carolina, Georgia, as well as Arizona. So you're looking at least the major swing states moving towards Donald Trump. Of course, as far as Nevada is concerned, that hasn't been called as yet, but it's moving towards Donald Trump. Wisconsin and Michigan. Now, Michigan too, remember, has already been called. That goes in favor of Donald Trump. So if you really look at these 7 bellwether states, that's where the key factor really comes in, working for the Republicans at this point in time, Abhishek. And the big contrast, if you really see from the last elections, is that it appears that all the seven states could actually go towards the Republicans, and that is the key factor.
Absolutely. In fact, that's really added to the scale of a Trump victory, Shawan. All these states, remember in the last elections, except for Nevada, I believe, Donald Trump had lost all of them, and now swinging. That's why they're called the swing states. This time, of course, Donald Trump getting all of them back, and that really underscores, as I was mentioning, that this is the first time, perhaps in at least 2 decades, that the Republicans have all of the national popular vote, as also, of course, the Electoral College.
Well, in fact, we'll also talk about the Senate and the House, because as you rightly pointed out, the Senate has also moved towards the Republicans. After 4 years, you're really looking at the stronghold of the Republicans. Let's also take you through what has already been called so far in terms of the swing states. So far, it's coming in from North Carolina, which is about 16 electoral votes. Now, that happens to be the second largest after Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, too, has already been called in. So you're looking at 16 here. 19. Let's move on faster to take you through the other states that have already been called in. That's Pennsylvania, which would be 19. It seems like we've got stuck with our graphic right now. But I'll just quickly tell you. North Carolina, Arizona, as well as Pennsylvania. These are the 3 places where you're largely seeing the swing states coming in. Georgia, that's about 16 here. So you have 19 plus 16. That's the second highest. Pennsylvania, I've already spoken about. And let me take you through the other coming in. Michigan 2, we have just missed that out. Wisconsin, 10 electoral votes. So all that put together, it seems that you have a bunch of states coming together in favor of the Republicans, as Abhishek was also pointing out. Now, these are the bellwether states too. It has flipped towards the Democrats in the previous election. Now, once again, coming back for the Republicans.
All right, let's move on to another breaking news development coming in. This is from a very reaction to Donald Trump's victory from a very important quarter, geopolitically speaking. Kremlin has reacted now, saying that it would judge Donald Trump, who has claimed victory in the US presidential election, on his actions. Putin does not plan to congratulate Trump on his victory. We are talking about an unfriendly country that is both directly and indirectly involved in the war against Russia. The president's press secretary, Dmitry Peskov, reminded. Now, this is clear. Remember, Vladimir Putin had all but endorsed Kamala Harris. Remember, Shawan, which was picked up by Donald Trump, and when he said in his campaign that it's Kamala Harris whom Putin prefers. In a way, Putin continuing with that messaging that, oh, he's not very excited about Donald Trump. But remember, the position that Donald Trump has taken on Europe war obviously helps Putin, because Donald Trump's victory means that America would not be that gung-ho on the Europe war or its role in the Europe war. America would not be that gung-ho on NATO. And so I believe, I think this is a smart politics, if nothing else, by Vladimir Putin in not outrightly welcoming Donald Trump's victory, and hence not compromise Donald Trump's standing in the eyes of the Americans by sort of suggesting in any manner that, oh, see, Russians are excited about Trump's victory.
Well, in fact, just 2 big takeaways from the statements that have been made by Donald Trump in the past, particularly with regards to the Russia-Ukraine war. One, the funding that has been given by the US Congress, essentially aiding the war, is what Donald Trump had indicated. That is the reason why perhaps Volodymyr Zelensky developing that cold feet. If at all Trump comes back, what really happens to the funding? And that is one big, perhaps, bone of contention on this on this particular issue. Now, the other statement that was actually made with regards to the Russia-Ukraine war, all through the campaigning, this is what he said, that if at all there is a Russia-Ukraine war, that is because of Joe Biden, and he says that if voted to power, he will ensure that the war comes to an end. A reference to it also in the victory speech. Perhaps you can play that victory speech in a short while from now, where he once again says that all those who were saying that if Donald Trump comes to power, war will take place. He referred to the fact that in his term, there was no war. In fact, he intends to end the war, in terms with the Congress power that they have right now,
in fact,
the Senate power that they have, it seems like first cut the funding.
In fact, Shravan, during the campaign, Donald Trump had said very clearly that the moment I win, the first thing I'll do is call Volodymyr Zelensky and Vladimir Putin and tell them this is not a time for war, as Prime Minister Modi always has maintained. So I think it's going to be interesting. One Volodymyr is going to like that, one Vladimir is not going to like that. It would be interesting to see which one.
Well, in fact, let's also take you through what is it that, how exactly is China really responding to it? Because I'm given to understand China's foreign ministry, Abhishek, has also put out a statement, if I'm not wrong. That's the other breaking news now coming in, because with the return of Donald Trump, how exactly would China really respond? Because we have seen the kind of acrimonious relationship that they've had, aggression that we saw in the previous term. Are we really looking at the same kind of an aggression being brought in by Donald Trump as far as dealing with China? Abhishek.
Well, yes, absolutely. So if it comes to China, remember Donald Trump, Shravan, was the first American president perhaps effectively reading the riot act to China in its first term from the United Nations. Otherwise, bombing China with a tariff wall and...
Okay, well, in fact, I think so. They've called in the election, which was known, Trump being elected as the 47th.
Very reluctantly. So it seems, Shravan, a couple of hours later...
Well, if you simply go by the Associated Press's history, they've largely said that we've always got it correct for decades put together. It's that's the positioning that they've done. But having said that, you've had all the other legacy media in the West really calling the elections much earlier. Reuters also, I'm told the wires have already called in. But here, that's also because till about the last election, things nervously changed with every passing hour. This time, there were certain changes that were brought in particularly the swing states. So that's the reason why the counting has happened much faster than what happened in the previous elections. But now, AP, Associated Press, Abhishek, calling in the elections, Donald Trump, the 47th President of the United States of America.
Well, belatedly so. I mean, they had, as if they had option. If they had option, they would have exercised it, Shravan. But the fact of the matter is that when even CNN was quick enough to sort of concede even before Kamala Harris, and in fact, if I recollect correctly, when things were really panning out, CNN was actually keeping pace with Fox in terms of increasing the percentage possibility of Trump of a Trump victory. So I think in that sense, having played very anti-Trump during the campaign, American media really had no option now with the numbers coming in. And I think the wide margin with which this drubbing has come in for the Harris campaign, I think there was no possibility whatsoever of playing around for whatever time, and hence you are seeing these concessions essentially coming in.
Well, in fact, Abhishek, we've spoken about what India really gets from a Trump presidency. But there are also certain flip sides that we'll have to really look at. Now, the flip side, let's talk about the flip side of what India might essentially lose now. That's on the tenterhooks right now. Inflation may go up, is some experts essentially indicating higher interest rates, increased costs. Because remember, right now, for Donald Trump would be to basically be much more protectionist. So does that really have an impact? Once again, that's an area which we do not like. With the dollar really strengthening, how does that really impact us? Indian rupee, whether that is going to weaken or not, that's another big concern right now with Trump really coming in. So that's the bigger concern. Now, these are some of the what experts have been indicating. Of the flip side of it, import expenses may rise once again. If at all the tariffs are being brought in, with American companies being given that primacy, it may have its own impact on the market, extended market instability. But having said that, we have seen that as far as what works, let's also take you through what works. Anticipated rise in the US fiscal deficit. Now, these are some of the things that have really could be a cause of concern. But let's also take you through what India might also gain from the presidency. Now, that is another important aspect. While we're talking about the global inflation, higher interest rates, because this is essentially stemming from the protectionist view of the Republicans, where they say the primary concern would be for the American companies. So that's the flip side of it, but things could certainly change if at all you have the hard bargaining that has been done by the Indians, Abhishek.
All right, Shawan, from the United States back home.